Hey guys, what is up, and I welcome each and every one of you to a new League of Legends video. So it has been a long time since I've made a video talking about what the best champions are for the current patch, so I thought we'll do that right now. Hopefully this will help you get a better idea as to which champions you should be playing right now, which ones you should maybe be banning out, or even being very careful if the enemy team gets as well. As usual, if you guys end up enjoying this kind of video, then definitely hit that like button to let me know, and if you want me to continue doing them. And this video is going to be made in collaboration with Pro Guides. It is a website that tries to improve your overall gameplay and knowledge of League of Legends by giving you many videos and different tips to try and improve your overall performance. With the season just freshly started, it's probably a pretty good idea to check it out right now, so I'll have a link to it down below so you can check it out completely for free and definitely see an improvement in your own gameplay. But let's get this party started and talk about the very first champion, and it's going to be none other than Zoe herself. Now thank the Lord that there are some pretty serious Zoe nerfs coming over in the next patch, but we're not talking about that patch, we're talking about this one, and at the moment she is still definitely in that stage of where you definitely want to either ban her or first pick her, because much like Teemo, and she's probably kind of the new Teemo actually, if the enemy team has her, or at least I guess if your team has her, consider the enemy team already slightly tilted, because honestly, who the hell wants to face this champion anyways? So that in itself is already a bonus just because you win psychologically, but in the game itself, Zoe is of course very difficult to play against and also not the most difficult champion in the entire world to play as. Your E ability is still probably the most overloaded ability in the entire game from all basic abilities, because if you still miss it, well, I mean, you can still actually land it. And the whole setup it provides with the whole drowsy into the sleep with extra damage, it really is just insanely powerful. On top of also being able to go across walls, which gives Zoe almost a no risk for actually firing off the ability. If you miss it, no problem, you'll be able to fire off one in very little time. And if you do land it, well, chances are you just got a pick for your team, so it really is almost a win-win scenario, and that's probably the biggest issue. But regardless, Zoe, I think goes without saying, is probably one of the best champions at the very moment, so let's go into the build very quickly. For runes, there are two pages that you can run each with their own success. The first of which is going to be going for the spellbook, which is a very good one because it'll help you use your summoner spells that much more frequently, and it gives you a lot of extra bonus stats. The other option is going for something like Meteor, which is also quite good, which will also let you get really useful runes. For items, the only one that you can swap out here is probably Liandry's Torment, and you can swap that out for maybe something like a Banshee's Veil instead, or a Lichbane. But let's move over down to the bot lane, where I want to talk about the ADC role because it is a very strong one at the very moment in my honest opinion. And the main reason is because the games tend to just last a lot longer. I mean, usually it'll either be a 15-minute stomp or the game is going to last up to at least 35 minutes. So with that being said, there's a lot of ADCs right now that are very strong. The first of which I'll talk about is going to be none other than Twitch, who's been pretty much in the top 3 of ADCs for probably even months now. This guy not only scales insanely well, but his laning phase, even though it's not the best, it's definitely not the worst in the entire world as long as you play safe and understand that, you know what, you don't pick Twitch to win the laning phase, you play Twitch to get past the laning phase and then start carrying mid to late game. So with all that being said, I feel like it is quite obvious as to what Twitch does in the late game. He pretty much 1v5. So let's take a look at the build very quickly. For runes, usually going fleet footwork is the best because again, he does have a pretty subpar laning phase, and this helps you get past it with the extra healing and overheal, and even going for bloodline as well. But the other option is of course going for legend alacrity like I have right here. Celerity is great for Twitch, which combines with his Q ability quite well, and Gathering Storm because, well, Twitch, he scales really well. Gathering Storm only complements that even further, and the chances of you getting to that point where Gathering Storm really kicks in is usually fairly high. But moving along, let's quickly talk about Tristana as well, because just like Twitch, Tristana is also a hyper carry ADC that is actually a lot better than Twitch in many scenarios, other than just simply 1v5ing with your ultimate. Because not only does Tristana scale really well, she's actually not too bad when it comes to the early to mid game because of her E ability and her ability to actually destroy towers very, very quickly. So if you play the macro game correctly, Tristana is probably the best ADC at that. But even with that being said, she's also one of the safer ADCs because not only does she have her own escape, being her W, but if someone like an assassin or maybe someone like Talon or, you know, a tank finally does get on you, well, you just pop them away with your ultimates and you're even more safe like that. So all in all, Tristana is just a very safe, very strong, very reliable, huge tower taker, huge scaler, her Q ability and everything, just very safe ADC that is just very good in too many things and not bad at enough things. So with that being said, here's the recommended build for Tristana if you actually get her. Fleet footwork is also quite good, but you can probably get away with lethal tempo or also press the attack. But fleet footwork is probably the best just because if you have a bad part in the game, it's going to be your laning phase most likely. And the final ADC I want to talk about is also going going to be another hyper carry, but a slightly different one than Twitch and Tristana, because for this one we'll be talking about Varus. Now, Varus doesn't rely on critical strike and those kind of things much like someone like Tristana or Twitch do. Instead, he relies on a lot of attack speed and a lot of on-hit damage. But that is not a bad thing at all. In fact, it actually might be even better in certain scenarios, because the amount of damage that Varus can do, if he has, for instance, let's say a Wit's End, a Gwynsu's, and a Blade of the Rune King and or Runaan's Hurricane, my goodness, will he just absolutely melt the entire backline. But not only does he have the hyper carry potential with just his auto attacks, he also has poke with his Q ability. He has a pretty strong laning phase actually if you engage after you proc your passive from a minion and also through your E for the grievous wounds and the slow. But he also has a CC ability in his kit, being his ultimate, that allows you to get really useful catches. All in all, again, a very strong ADC. The only thing he lacks is of course having some form of mobility and or escape. Other than that, if you let him stack up his Rage Blade within a team fight, you might want to either run or just kill him as fast as you humanly possibly can, or else he will kill you first. So with that being said, taking a quick look at the build for Mr. Varus, again, on-hit items like Rage Blade, Blade of the Rune King, Runaan's Hurricane, Wit's End as well are all very, very strong. And just like every other champion that we've talked about so far in the ADC role, Fleet Footwork is going to be usually your keystone of choice, because all you really care about is going to be to try and get past the laning phase. Otherwise, you're pretty much good to go. And also a very quick honorable mention in the ADC role goes to Kog'Maw, because he's pretty much in the exact same position as the other three ADCs I talked about, just a bit more closer to Varus rather than Tristana and Twitch. But moving along, let's go into the jungle for just a bit. Now, the first champion I want to talk about here is going to be Xin Zhao. Now, he's also getting a nerf in the next patch, but as of right now, he's a pretty top tier jungler. And unfortunately, he has been for several patches now, and nothing really has changed because, well, he's really just not getting nerfed and other champions aren't getting buffed enough. So the same thing applies as before. This guy still has a very good clear, has got solid gang, C scales actually surprisingly well for how tanky he can build with the Triforce. His ultimate is insanely good when it comes to blocking damage and displacing people. And I mean, all in all, Xin Zhao is just very much Xin Zhao. Like I said, nothing has changed. He's still very, very strong. So let's take a quick look at the build whenever playing this champion in the jungle. Press the attack is going to be your keystone of choice, I feel like, for obvious reasons. And you want to opt out to go into the domination path as your secondary tree because of sudden impact and relentless hunter. Moving along in the jungle, we'll also quickly talk about Warwick. Now, Warwick is also very, very good. Hasn't been touched too much, is still chilling in the top tier of the junglers because, again, kind of like Xin Zhao, he also does a lot of damage for how tanky he can be. He is very, very tanky and hard to kill, but the main thing is the fact that his chase potential is almost unmatched. You really just can't run away from this champion, so if you ever fall low, he's going to run you down across the map and he will most likely get you, unless you're maybe Tristana or Twitch, and even then, you're probably still dead. His ultimate is an insanely good initiation tool that has a lot of range. His jungle clear is quite good because he can leave quite healthy thanks to his passive and his Q, and all in all, again, Warwick is just Warwick. Taking a quick look at the build that you want to run whenever playing Warwick, very similar to Xin Zhao, you want to run the press the attack because it just works super, super well with his ultimates. But for him instead, you want to go into the sorcery tree because celerity just works insanely well with his kits, and water walking is just complementing even further. And the final jungler I want to talk about is going to be Skarner. Now, he's actually a little bit weaker this patch because Unsealed Spellbook did get nerfed, but he's still very, very strong regardless because the nerf on Unsealed Spellbook wasn't absolutely abysmal. So Skarner, what does he have? Well, he also has a decent clear because he can spam Q, he can get through the jungle fairly quickly and fairly healthy as well, but the main thing is the fact that, well, you can go Unsealed Spellbook and go for those flash ult engages over and over and over. He also has a lot of CC built into his kit, he is very, very hard to kill, and he's just one of those obnoxious junglers that he'll still do a decent amount of damage, and if he does get ahead, killing him is not going to be easy. So all of that on top of him being a fairly easy jungler to play just makes him a good champion all around. So let us get into the build whenever playing Skarner. Like I said, you want to go for the Unsealed Spellbook so you can swap out the flash to get it much more frequently and also get other keystones as well. Maybe like in Senna Smite, you can swap out for Ghost for a bit. And just like Warwick, celerity and water walking are fantastic. Now, the last champion I want to talk about before we go into honorable mentions is all the way in the top lane, Camille. Now, Camille has been wreaking havoc in the top lane for quite a bit because she's fairly good against a lot of the tanky champions because of her extra attack speed that she gets from her E ability, of course her true damage from her Q ability, which is probably one of the biggest factors, and also her ultimate, which gives you an extra % max HP damage per auto. But even with her being good against tanks, she's also very good at deleting squishies, also because she has a lot of range. Her ultimate just completely nullifies the ability for a squishy champion to get away, so they're stuck there and they're gonna be taking a beating. And it really shouldn't be a mystery as to why I have Camille listed right here, because she is just a very good champion overall, which is why I personally play her whenever I get top lane. Granted, I personally sometimes int, but that's just what I do. You guys already know the drill. But here's the recommended build whenever playing Camille. Press attack is actually not a bad option, though you usually want to go Arcane Comment because it just synergizes with your W so insanely well that just landing your W with Arcane Comment and Scorch is a pretty damn big harass in laning phase. Now, before I end off this video, there's a few honorable mentions I want to quickly go over. The first of which is in the top lane being Sion and Gangplank. Both of these bad boys are very, very strong. Gangplank, in fact, is actually almost always banned because of how well he can scale and just how much he can do late game if you know what you're doing. Sion, of course, being just probably the best tank at the moment and actually the highest win rate champion in top lane overall. He's also quite good when it comes to shutting down champions like Twitch or Varus because they can't really get away from him. Following this, I also want to talk about Fizz and Veigar in the mid lane. Fizz because, well, he just counters a lot of the meta champions in the mid lane at the very moment, being immobile casters, and Veigar for very similar reasons, like people like Tristana, Twitch, Varus, he scales insanely well in the laning phase. So you want to watch out for that bad boy because, my goodness, if you get to late game, he will literally press R and you're most likely dead. Very underrated pick. But that is about it for this video, guys. There you have it, the best champions for patch 8.3. Let me know what you think about these champions down below. If you enjoyed the video, then definitely hit that like button. But thank you all so much for watching. Share this with your friends, and I'll see you for the next video. Peace.